Dominic Cummings brought a chart to his first appearance in public since quitting Number 10. He told MPs it showed how most scientific research happens inside tiny boundaries, and government must continue his push to change that.
Hopefully you can see this. I'll put it on my blog if it doesn't show up very well. This is basically where all funders globally are. They're in this little bubble here. But this is the actual design space for how you could do science and technology.
It triggered a flurry of parodies on Twitter, mocking his trip to Barnard Castle in lockdown and his notorious excuse that he'd been driving to test his eyesight. Dominic Cummings was talking about the hugely successful US government agencies set up to invest in science in the 1950s.
Darpa, its charter, maintain US technological superiority over potential adversaries.
He wanted to replicate it and the risks it took with government money.
If it isn't failing, then it's failing. It has to fail. And quite a large percentage of what it does should fail, shouldn't work.
Dominic Cummings slated the Department of Health for its inability to buy protective equipment and medical kit last year, and said that was why the government had taken vaccine procurement outside the department.
Obviously last year, we saw the Department for Health had just absolute total disaster in terms of buying. How it buys, how it procures, how it deals with science and technology. It's not coincidental that the vaccine program worked the way that it did. It's not coincidental that to do that we had to take it out of the Department of Health. We had to have it authorised very directly by the Prime Minister and say, strip away all the normal nonsense. In spring 2020, you had a situation where the Department for Health was just a sort of smoking ruin in terms of procurement and PPE and all of that.
Dominic Cummings seems to think that your department is to blame for one of the biggest failings of the pandemic, the supply of PPE, and has nothing to do with one of its biggest successes.
I think everybody involved in the vaccine rollout would agree that we have that positive esprit de corps, and that's the best way to leave it.
Dominic Cummings revealed how Boris Johnson, only 3 days before this moment, when his premiership started, had visited the Cummings home to beseech Dominic Cummings to be the brains of his operation.
I said, yes, if, first of all, you're deadly serious about actually getting Brexit done and avoiding a second referendum. Secondly, double the science budget. Third, create some ARPA-like entity. And fourth, support me in trying to change how Whitehall works and the Cabinet Office work, because it's a disaster zone. And he said, deal.
After nearly 16 months, the deal frayed. He cleared his desk and was out. 4 months on from disappearing from public view, Dominic Cummings told MPs he wasn't sure if the Prime Minister was still following his advice. He hinted it might be a good idea if there was an inquiry into the government's conduct over COVID. And he said he'd be happy to talk much more about his time working for the Prime Minister. The feeling's probably not mutual. Gary Gibbon, Channel 4 News, Downing Street.